Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this would be episode 134 for you guys today. And to kick off the combat series this week, I'll be sharing my dream list of fights that I would like to see in the calendar year of 2026. So happy New Year's to everyone around the world as we are now in the calendar year of 2026. And to kick off my list would be a rematch between Devin the Dream Haney and King Ryan Garcia. Honestly, I would love to see this rematch in 2026. I still believe this would be one of the biggest fights to be made in the calendar year 2026, and I think the rematch still sells between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. And hell, I think this is the biggest fight to be made at the welterweight division today at 147 in the sport of boxing. Now, everybody remembers the drama a year and a half, going on 2 years now, back in 2024, with Ryan Garcia being the first man to defeat Devin Haney in a boxing fight at the time. But the win lasted for a week or two before the fight became a no contest, and Ryan Garcia's win was tainted and taken away from him for testing positive for 2 PED tests. As a result, the fight was ruled as a no contest. Devin Haney got his O back, and Ryan Garcia was suspended for a year from the sport of boxing. Everything got more controversial outside the ring as the two went to court with each other. But this fight honestly could have been made by the end of 2025, the back end last year, because all Ryan Garcia had to do was defeat Rolly Romero. He did not do that. He lost the fight. And Devin Haney took care of business against Jose Ramirez on the card as well. But the fight did not happen. That's the reason why we got Devin Haney versus Brian Norman Jr. in the second half of 2025 rather than seeing that rematch between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. But guys, I still want to see it because there is rich history between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. This would be fight 8. And if you followed their amateur background, they fought each other 6 times in the amateurs, with both of them splitting it at piece 3-3. Fight 7 in the pros was labeled as a no contest. Fight 8 would be even more exciting. I think the build-up will be fun. I think this still will be one of the biggest fights 2026. Styles makes fights. You have Ryan Garcia with the power, the signature check left hook, the quick hand speed, going up against Devin Haney's counter-punching skills, slick boxing background. I think this is still one hell of a fight to be made. And it could be a much bigger fight in the back end of 2026, because if Ryan Garcia defeats Mario Barrios whenever they fight for the WBC title, he's a champion. And we know Devin Haney just defeated Brian Norman Jr. for the WBO title. So then that's a title unification at welterweight. The more money's there, I think this fight sells. I would love to see this rematch between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia in 2026. The list keeps getting hot. The next fight on the list, I would love to see some Dmitry Bivol versus David Benavidez. That's a dream caliber fight for me in 2026. Now, I think this fight realistically can happen between Dmitry Bivol and David Benavidez in the back end of 2026. I just talked about how special that fight would be. I think this could happen at 2 weight divisions, either at cruiserweight or light heavyweight. So the interesting thing about this is why I said cruiserweight. David Benavidez is going to fight on Cinco de Mayo weekend, steal Canelo Alvarez's thunder and his date, and move up the cruiserweight to fight Gilberto Ramirez to become a 3-division world champion. Hopefully, if you're David Benavidez and company. So I'm not sure what the timeline is going to look like for Dmitry Bivol. We know he was sidelined for majority of 2025 due to having back surgery. He looks like he's recovering well, back in the gym training. So I don't know if Dmitry Bivol in the first half of 2026 is going to give Arthur Beterbiev the trilogy fight, and those 2 fighters fighting in a trilogy for a unified light heavyweight title fight or not. But we heard the sparring rumors and the speculation of what happened between Dmitry Bivol and David Benavidez when they sparred against each other. The stories are that David Benavidez got the better of Dmitry Bivol. We haven't really heard Dmitry Bivol's side of the story to that. But I think this is really a compelling fight, whether it takes place at 175 at light heavyweight or cruiserweight. Styles makes fights. I think Dmitry Bivol's crafty boxing skills, having one of the best jabs in the sport today, mixed with his swift counter-punching skills going up against David Benavidez, who is a great counter-puncher, has the power. And both fighters like to fight coming forward, fight in the inside, can fight, or Dmitry Bivol can fight well in range. I think that's one of the biggest fights to be made, either at lightweight, light heavyweight, or cruiserweight this year in the sport of boxing. Give me that fight at some point between Dmitry Bivol and David Benavidez. Next fight. Jaron Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz Jr. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we got to get this fight in 2026. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Jaron Ennis and Virgil Ortiz have to share the ring with each other in 2026. And yes, both fighters, I'm saying both fighters are at fault for not making this fight happen, because around this time last year, that big boxing card that took place in February, Jaron Ennis did have a chance to move up and fight Virgil Ortiz at this super welterweight division. Jaron Ennis declined, and he fought again at welterweight to become a unified champion. And Virgil Ortiz, whether you guys want to agree with it or not, somewhat could be viewed as ducking Jaron Ennis as well, because after they had the big build-up, after Virgil Ortiz knocked out Erickson Lubin and within 2 rounds a few months ago, after the face-off, you go in front of a camera and say you want to fight Errol Spence, who hasn't been in a boxing ring for nearly 3 years now. So if that doesn't look like a duck-roni pizza, I don't know what it looks like. But I think Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya should work really hard behind the scenes to make this fight happen in 2026 as soon as possible. That should be, honestly, next for both fighters. And the fight sells without either guy being a champion. Don't prolong this at the super welterweight division. Make this fight happen now. No need to play the waiting game for Jaron Ennis to collect the title at 154 or Virgil Ortiz Jr. to collect the belt at 154. Like I said, these are honestly the 2 biggest stars that 154 has to offer in the division right now. And all the champions are occupied at 154 right now. You still have the WBC champion Sebastian Fundora supposed to fight Keith Thurman at some point. The IBF champion Bakaram is supposed to defend his title late January. And then you have the title unification between Xander Zayas, who's the WBO champion, and Abbas, who is the WBA champion. So all the champions are occupied in the beginning part of 2026. What the hell are we waiting for? Line up the fight between Jaron Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz Jr. Again, styles makes fights. You have Jaron Ennis' sharp boxing skills, great footwork with a great boxing IQ, going up against Virgil Ortiz Jr. that has a tremendous boxing IQ as well, powerful puncher as well, great counter puncher. Both fighters are very aggressive, fighting in the inside, fighting in the pocket. This would be one hell of a show. And honestly, with all the skills that I just mentioned for both fighters, I don't see that fight going the distance. I think someone honestly gets knocked out within 12 rounds. But let's not play the waiting game. Let's not pull a Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, or we wait years for Jaron Ennis and Virgil Ortiz to share the ring. Let's not play the waiting game like we waited for Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford to finally share the ring. Like, these guys get this job done, and the promoters of Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya get this done. Let's make the fight happen between 2 outstanding undefeated fighters at 154. Ooh, this one is lined up, but I'm still excited for it when I think about the heavyweight division. Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. All signs point to yes for that fight being made in 2026. Eventually, we'll see it. This was the plan all along for 2026. Anthony Joshua was supposed to come back after knocking out Jake Paul. We know the unfortunate tragedy with his 2 close friends that were part of his training camp and had a strong connection with them outside the ring, with that accident that happened, unfortunately, in Nigeria a few days removed after Christmas during the holiday season. So my thoughts and condolences to Anthony Joshua, and I hope everything goes well. But I think him and Tyson Fury will fight each other in the back end of 2026 once everything gets cleared up and he's ready to return back to the sport. And I honestly still think that's one of the biggest fights to be made in UK history. And the final fight on my list, I'll go with another rematch. Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach. Rematch, part 2. Now, if Gervonta Davis returns back to the sport of boxing, there's no and, ifs, or buts about who he should fight first in his return fight. It would honestly have to be Lamont Roach, based off of how everything happened in the beginning part of 2025. A very close fight between Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach, where Lamont Roach should have scored the knockdown in the 9th round. I think he hit a double jab with Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis claimed he had grease in his eyes, took a knee, pulling a Colin Kaepernick in the boxing ring, went to the corner to Calvin Ford to get his eyes wiped. He's lucky he did not get disqualified in that fight. And honestly, as much as I love Gervonta Davis, I never seen an active boxer, professional boxer, ever pull that shit in a boxing ring, especially in a world title defense. So if you count the knockdown that Lamont Roach should have got, Lamont Roach should have defeated Gervonta Davis in a close contested fight. And honestly, I want to see it again. I do want to see it again. I do think Gervonta Davis that day had a bad cherry pick with picking Lamont Roach instead of fighting top tier competition. And it went wrong for him because everything went downhill from there. Now, if Tank wants to get back in the ring, let him get back in the ring. But we're not going to accept you trying to do some circus shit with Jake Paul or anything like that. You need to fight the best of the best. And I think it starts by fighting Lamont Roach. So I think the build-up would be fun. Two guys from the DMV that know each other very well. Lamont Roach being from Washington, D.C. Gervonta Davis being from Baltimore, Maryland. They both have faced each other and the amateurs growing in the sport. So I think both are slick, sharp boxers, the Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach. I think Gervonta Davis's power and counterpunching skills with Lamont Roach's slick boxing skills, great boxing IQ, and defensive style. That's a fight that sells, and I think we should get that in 2026 if Gervonta Davis decides to return back to the sport. If not, I respect it, and nobody's asking any more really from you at this point. But if you return, you owe it to the boxing fans and yourself to still prove if you still got it or not. But those fights are the fights that are on my dream list of seeing in the calendar year 2026 in the sport of boxing.